Morning and Freilich Chanukah, Zeitz Chanukah, final day, the 8th day when we have to summarize everything. Locking horns. Locking horns. Of course, the Chanukah story is a war. It's a war in the battlefield, and it's a war, a spiritual war, the war of the oil. And now we start Parshas V'yigash. Yigash alav Yehuda. Yehuda approaches Yosef. Judah versus Joseph. Clash of the Titans, Lahavdil. Both representing different types of forces in the world. Just I'm not sure whether this is working right now. You have to stop it. Oh, we got somebody. Okay, there we now I know it's working. Good morning. Hello. Okay, I'm gonna just bring you up to speed. Locking horns. You have Clash of the Titans. You have Judah versus Joseph. Yehuda versus Yosef. You have the power of the rule, the future rule of the Davidic dynasty, Mashiach, coming from Yehuda, and you have Mashiach ben Yosef. You have this dynasty that comes from Yosef through Ephraim. And they lock horns in this week's parasha because you have this moment where Yehuda does ask permission to speak, but he speaks in such a way that he approaches the throne. Yehuda, who was just bowing before, earlier on, he was bowing before Yosef, before Joseph, and now he's approaching him like he's going to kill him. And he's saying, Kamaika kikpare, you are like Pare before me. I'm not concerned about Pare, it's only you. I recognize you have the power. So who was Pare, to whose power Yosef had? He was a melech b'kippah. He was a ruler with no, not a yarmulke, not a kippah in that sense, but the whole globe of the world. Good morning. That's who Pare was. And the Mishneh L'melech Yosef, he had the power to rule it as he wished with the signet ring of the king. So to have that kind of power represented authority over the entire world. That's what Yosef was. And Yehuda is the power to stand up to that. And although he's speaking, he's not like, and he asks permission even to speak, but he approaches in a way that he's going to be a man of war. The Makim She'ein Ish, right? If there's no one there to stand up, Yehuda was the chosen of the brothers. He was Melech B'Shvatim, as it says in the Medrash in Bereishis Rabbah. And Rashi brings it in Parshas V'yechi. What gave Yehuda authority over all of his brothers, in particular Yosef, who was the spawn of Rachel Imenu, which was the wife of Yaakov. Jacob married Rachel. Rachel was the chosen wife. She was the wife. Leah, Imah Bar Mismecha, was an accident. All of them were, it's always an accident. There's only one. How could you dance at two weddings? How could one woman be married to two men? That's what the Medrash asks. How can you dance at two weddings, the Medrash asks? And we're going to get into Purim on Chanukah time, okay? Because the two things are related, obviously. But Purim happens to be a wonderful story. So if you're going to talk about Purim, I think it's very fascinating thing to do any time of year. Because it says that Achashverosh, also who is a melech b'kippah, tyrant over the entire world, or a ruler over the whole world. Melech is not a man. Meishel. A Meishel b'kippah. Maybe that's Meishel b'kippah. I'm probably saying, yeah, Meishel b'kippah. Okay, someone who's a tyrant over the entire world. Meishel b'kippah. I think I said it wrong before. It won't be the first time. So he's going to make a party that outdoes any party you've ever heard of. And he's going to do it, Kirtzain Ish V'ish, both Mordechai and Haman, these opposites, these polar opposites, which we're going to see as Yehuda and Yosef are polar opposites, as the Rebbe is going to explain. So Mordechai and Haman, you can't see a bigger oxymoron than that. If you're going to do kirtzayna ish be'ish, you're going to make a party to satisfy both the frumest guy you could possibly imagine and the biggest rebel you could possibly imagine. How are you going to make, what's it going to look like? There's going to be a red barrier, separate, like a police line separating Mordechai's camp versus Haman, and you're gonna have the bongos playing in Haman's side, and they're gonna be saying a drush right next door, or saying l'chaim on the best scotch available at the time, and it's kosher and theirs is not. And you're gonna make a party? What? It's not gonna be one party. You have two different parties. Let's face it. No. So the Medrash criticizes him and saying he was a fool. He was a king on earth, and he's subject to being a little fantastical at times and not being able to live up to his expectations of throwing a party because he couldn't do it. You're gonna have one woman that's gonna marry two men? How are you gonna satisfy both? This one's gonna say, forget the other guy. What are you doing? You cannot dance two weddings. Then you have a different opinion. And I want to read it to you, because this becomes the whole answer to the universe, always, right? Whenever you have the resolution of opposites, how are you going to have a one nation in the future to come? How are you going to have Yehuda? What's going to happen to Yosef? Yosef, look at the Midrash or the Agadah that speaks about, I think it was Menashe, who says, yeah, who's gonna be at the head of the table? It's going to be King David, not you. So he says, forget it. I'm not going to go with you. He says, we're going to walk together in the Garden of Eden. Who's going to walk first? Who's going to be on your right side, God? Me or King David? We're all going to walk together. Who's going to be the main guy? You cannot satisfy both parties. How are we going to have Yehuda, one king over the entire Jewish people? We have that whole miracle of Chanukah is that you have one cruse of oil that has a hechsher that everyone agrees to. Isn't that the miracle? The nimna himnois, the impossible made possible in Chanukah. When you have the oil burning and not burning at the same time. The burning bush incarnate in a time where you didn't have revealed miracles. And ultimately there, you have a spiritual miracle that represents the greatest, the highest type of miracle of all. Because it's when you're fighting within the boundaries of nature and you're conquering. So the Rebbe says, and I know I'm meandering through this, that there's a time before the actual redemption whereby you have the opportunity to choose. Are you going to bow down to the powers of the world, the Yosefs of the world? Or are you going to stand up like the Yehuda, the ultimate ruler, the Judah, the Mashiach, and totally conquer the world? It's Reichev al Achamar. You're riding. The only one that got to ride the donkey is Mashiach. I don't care who you are. Moshe, Avram, it doesn't matter. Only Mashiach is going to actually ride the donkey, the chumrius of the world. What does it mean? Well, we're going to say here that there's a way to resolve this contradiction. You can dance at two weddings. Ultimately, it means that the bipolar you described in the beginning of the Tanya is going to be resolved. There is going to be a party where both of your nefashes, your two voices in you, the very from guilt-conscious voice and the partier inside you, are both going to feel at home at the same time. There's going to be one person sitting on the throne, right? Yehuda is going to sit on the throne. But that Malchus Beis Yosef, the whole dynasty that comes from Joseph, and all that Yisrael, you had Yehuda and Yisrael, the 10 Shvatim versus Yehuda and Binyamin, because Yehuda's fighting here for Binyamin and facing Yosef. You have two conducts in the world that are represented by each force. You have the conduct that recognizes the laws of nature, that, what's one Jew going to do? What's Avram going to do to confront an entire world of pantheists or atheists? What has one Jew face that? How does a Maccabee face the tens of thousands? So you have Yosef that conquers that world and stays in that world. And then you have a Yehuda who conquers even that. The power to say, yes, there's a world, and there's laws of nature, and I cannot hurl a building in a single bound, but one day I will be able to, through the laws of nature. The Matrix, on steroids. Steroids. What's steroids? So, okay, let's look at this medrash now inside, okay? Okay, because it gives two examples. It gives one woman can't marry two men, and you can't have two ships that are passing by. They're on par. They're in the same part of the sea with one wind that's going to blow them both in different directions. If one wants to go this way and when the other wants to go that, you can't have one wind that's going to blow them in different directions. But in the future to come, you will have such a wind. And that's going to be applied to Yerei Hashem, Yapik Ratzon Shnehem. For the sake of those who fear God, he's going to do the will of both. What does that mean? It means that the voice that you think is the rebel is also Yerei Hashem. Ultimately inside, he also wants to be part of it, and he wants to party for God in the ultimate festival. And that's why the Haman itself, you're not going to need the police line between the two even, or the soundproof barrier, and like with 100 mechitzas on it. You're not going to need that, because each one, Yapik Ratzon Shnehem, das heißt, that means, as der Eibishter bimin hagasai lasid lavai, in the way Hashem is going to conduct the natural state of things in the future to come, that zich firin in an eifin fun lasais kirtzain ish ve'ish. He's going to make a wind that's going to blow both sails. And both people are going to be satisfied. And the Rebbe goes on to say, how could that possibly be? So ultimately, the Rebbe talks about the time immediately leading up to the redemption, when you have the choice to open your eyes to see the power of a Jew. And you're going to have, the Rebbe relates it to Avodah Zarah. Yehudi, Mordechai was a Yehudi. What Yehudi means to deny idolatry. And idolatry doesn't mean just bowing down to idols. It means that any single thing in your life that's separate from your connection to God. If you say, now I'm going to have to hide to do something, and you're ashamed to be, that is testimony to this idea of the subtle idolatry that the Rebbe speaks about here. I just want to finish this thought before I read what you're writing. And the Rebbe explains how it's going to be reconciled with the Haman of the world. Because Kol Ma'asecha L'Shem Shemayim, there's an aspect of accepting a burden that applies to all aspects of your existence. But then there's a higher level. B'chol Drachecha De'eyu, in all of your ways, you should know God. So ultimately, in everything that is not necessarily a mitzvah, in the world of Rishus, we call it, that area too, you're going to know God through that. So that's this party that's going to satisfy both Mordechai and Haman. Ultimately, you're going to see that really it's in line. There is this deference to the Yehuda that's going to sit on the throne. The Mashiach, the one king that's going to rule the entire world, meaning, as the Rebbe goes on to explain, that all the nations are going to want to recognize and help the Jews serve God. Okay, and the Rebbe speaks about the urgency for redemption because it's an unnatural state for a Jew to be banished from the table of his father. A Jew is you're the child of God, every single Jew. It's not just one person, you make a religion out of it. It's every single Jew is said to be Bani Matam, children of God. And not only that, but you are meant to be in a good relationship with your father and therefore dine at his tish. Shulchan Avihem, it's described as the table of your father. That's the natural state. And in anyone that's not, he goes into the romantic concept of an aguna, or a marital concept of aguna, where you have Vasbaila, whose husband, God, halach lemedinas hayam, abandoned the family, and the guna cannot remarry because she doesn't know what happened to him. This happened after the Erison, after the betrothal. And in Yetzias Mitzrayim, that's in Yetzias Mitzrayim they had, on the Exodus from Egypt was the betrothal period. And it's going to be ultimately the marriage and this, not reconciliation, but rather the true marriage that was only betrothed. But after the betrothal period, God disappears. He goes on a journey. And that's descriptive of children banished from their father's table. So the Rebbe encourages you to conquer the world, and the whole world demands, ultimately will demand, the world itself, in other words, the second voice, the Hamans of the world, the ultimate enemy, the Yavan that we spoke about at such length this week, the rebel will demand, as Yadrid Zalshayin Stein, that every single Jew which should already now stand in the Ma'amad of Matzah from Geula HaMitzvah Shlema, in the ultimate state of redemption, whereby the Jews and the Jew within every person conquers any voice of opposition to the inner will of every Jew, which is to sit on the throne as Yehuda, which means, in other words, of course, you're not going to sit on the throne in Jerusalem. I don't mean that, obviously. I mean, in your world, what is important, you will rule over, and everything in your life will direct you towards conveniencing and accommodating your ability to implement your values and what's precious and important to you. And the Rebbe says here, fascinatingly, in a footnote, that's why the Rebbes in Chabad worked so hard towards finding ways to permit an aguna to remarry. One second, let me see if I get it right. Yedeo Gelo Hishtadlus Shel Rabbani Yisrael. Well, it doesn't say the Rebbes of Chabad. It said the Rabbani Yisrael. The Heter Aguna. I'm sorry, I misinterpret that. Asher B'Shvil Zeh Mispashtim Kol Heter Haifshori. That they look for every way to find a permissibility. Or Mekel Mazeh, and they're very lenient when it comes to an aguna. Blush Shas, there's a sensitivity to a person who is abandoned and alone, that they should be able to find meaningful relationships. Mishum iguna ikeluba rabbanan. Umazemuvan umakolshkin. How much more so? V'kal v'chomer b'negeh la'igun rachman l'tzlan dechol bnei Yisrael shebizman hagalos. How much more so for this abandonment that the Jewish people experience during the time of exile. Of course, if we looked in a chronological context and could step back and see eternity versus a fragment of suffering, what's the pasuk in Tehillim? Ki Shah B'Yitzaynai Elef Shanim. Like a moment, an hour for your perspective is like 1,000 years or something like that. So if you look back, when you're going to go through eternal bliss, okay, you're always partying. Kirtzainish ve'ish. Haman was called an ish. He was an ish sar ve'ayev, and Mordecai is called an ish because he's ish Yehudi. Let me see what you wrote now that I lost my train of thought. This paradox reminds me of the controversy between Shammai and Hillel regarding praising a bride. Shammai, do not praise an ugly bride. All brides are beautiful. It says all Jews would be beautiful. All Jewish women would be beautiful were it not for poverty. Fascinating statement. Eina isha ela l'nai. A woman's only intended for beauty? Maybe that's the beauty here of Hillel. That the chassan always sees the bride as beautiful. There's a way to find sensitivity for the aguna, right? There's always a way to see a soul that's isolated and find a way to let that person have a meaningful relationship. There is always such a force in the world, and that's the ability to see beauty in every person, to reconcile with them. When the Jewish people say, you know what, the dark part of me, the part that I'm not so proud of, that part also, and ultimately they're stronger than any other part, because Dafka, specifically in the rebel, you're going to get the greatest or most dramatic return. So that aspect of you that's rebellious, specifically there, once it finds the proper channel, it will be the ultimate reconciliation. Oh yeah, so there's going to be this wedding. That's going to be what we're preparing now. I'm grooming my hair for this wedding between Knesset Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God and the Jewish people. So we're preparing now. So this is like a long betrothal stage, but if you put it in an eternal context, it's a blip. So yes, it was an appropriate amount of time from one cosmic way of looking at it, which we don't have the ability to do, because we're sitting in a fragment of time. Oh, that's another way that the Rebbe answers this metaphysically, or maybe psychologically, or no. It's what do you call Bechira? It's philosophically, at least, right? The Rebbe explains that in terms of the fact that you have Bechira to choose to do like Haman, or to like Mordechai, like you could be good or bad. The Bechira, that is the theater for the reconciliation of these two opposites, and therefore, in virtue of our Bechira, God gives Kirtzain Ish Ve'ish. We have the ability to choose between good and evil, therefore, that's what it means. God gives you. And ultimately, in virtue of your Bechira, of your choice, that's where your merit is going to be. So it is the ultimate gift, and it is the ultimate place where we're going to see how whatever choices you did make, they're all going to lead to one place. All roads lead to Rome. All rivers go to the lake or the ocean or somewhere. The ocean, I think. I don't understand that. To me, they'd go to a lake, but I read that it goes to the ocean. Okay, that's the dance of Mashiach when you have like everybody there. Everyone's going to be invited. There's not going to be mechitza. I've spoke about that at length. It's about. I'm not going to go into it now. I'm going to get in trouble again. I'm going to lose more yarmulkes out there. I mean, people that are willing. If you talk about the controversial part of the Torah, people get nervous. But I'm just telling you what I'm reading every single week in the Rebbe's Sichas. I figure the Rebbe, if he's going to leave us, chas v'shalom, if he's going to appear to leave us, obviously he has to give himself into the books. So like the Rebbe Rashab said, I'm going to the heavens, but I'm going to put myself into the books which I'm leaving you with. He was hinting to that. So the Rebbe, if he has chas v'shalom abandoned us, like it appears that God abandoned us when we went into exile, it's analogous to a husband saying, see you later, in the middle of the betrothals, the guy leaving the chuppah and running away before he has proper yichud. Okay, that's what it looks like. That's what it means to be banished from the table. It's not natural. So ultimately, there's this moment of unity. It's finally achieved, and therefore you find a worthy. Also, we're talking about Bechira, a worthy expression for every part of you. And that's B'chol Jechecha Deyehu, in your ways, in all of your ways. That's why it says all. And Kol Ma'asecha L'Shem Shemayim, all your deeds should be for the sake of heaven, which is the lower level. Okay, we got everything in there, right? Did we explain did I read my poems? I don't remember. I didn't. Okay, that will be the dessert. Last will, the will to break and enter. Okay, this is a crazy story. Let's call it a dream. Let's call it a dream of an uncle that you might have that like has millions of dollars that and he left a will. Like it's one of those escape rooms stories. And you're thinking about breaking and entering to take the will because you know that it's written to, like Haman wrote, like chas v'shalom. It's like not that. Like actually, there's a transformation. If the will was given to a place that could have gone to something that's unique as a tzainim, to that the Sitra Achra, the other forces of the world could have got benefit from, imagine a way to find a way to satisfy also worthy causes. In other words, if it's going to go to Salian and it's directed to a Salian / Jewish interests for perpetuity, what an incredible transformation. My father did that. The ultimate transformation when you have money directed to something that looks like it's going to, not necessarily, there's worthy causes to save humanity and even to save nature. Save the whales is like a nice expression of this idea of you care not only about humanity, but even beyond that. Just the question is how you prioritize, which ultimately becomes the real determination of what you really value. You can't be obviously a fanatic environmentalist. That doesn't make sense either. I mean, man certainly has some purpose in the world, right? So the ability to transform that instrument, which was designed to feed everybody, even bad people, perhaps, and then directing at least a large portion of it towards things that you know are for the good. Like, for example, feeding your brethren. That's kind of good usually when your family and your interests that you value are supported. So that's the transformation of the world that the Rebbe is speaking about, that the world itself is going to support your path towards success and integrity. Man of war, locks, horns. Okay, so this is you could have a fight. You could lock horns with your opposite, and have fighting over one woman is the medrash there. They're both. Can you have such a thing where one woman is tries to satisfy both counterparts who are now locking horns? So interestingly, the medrash, of course, only resolves the analogy that has to do with the sails, that you're going to have a wind, the special wind that's going to blow both directions, but he doesn't say anything about the inappropriate marriage which cannot be. I got to look it up and see if there's any reference to that, but the Rebbe certainly doesn't quote it there. I'm assuming it doesn't exist. How could you resolve that? Israel logs. Okay, let me see what you wrote before. Let me fall. The me whom I shall become will catch me. Baal Shem Tov. Yes, I love that. I say look back and see that the person who you think is pursuing you is really your best friend. And he's only there to help you. Abandonment, he is behind the lattice work. That's the Shir Shirim. His locks wet with dew. Oh, the locks. I love the word locks with that. Yeah, I think I once wanted to capture that beautiful image. Israel locks horns with God. In a sense, yes. Because Nitzchuni Bona Nitzchuni, and because the Jewish women who represent the Jewish people's relationship with God, as opposed to the embodiment of God in respect to the Jewish people, which is more the Avos, the women overrule the Avos. They don't seize being the Nekeva. It's Nekeva to save of Gever. It's the female being dominant. The Yehuda represents the female. In a sense, there's dominance. And in that sense, in that respect, it's in a sense, the superiority of the Jewish people over Hashem, because the lion lifts up his tail, which is as a crown above his own head. So it's the beloved, it's the preciousness that with which God has and directs towards the Jewish people. How he sees them as so precious, as he's so sensitive to not leave the aguna and aguna, to be sensitive, to have a real relationship with every single Jew. That sensitivity makes them more precious than himself, and therefore he asks you to be victorious. So it's a peaceful war in the sense that the person who's created the battlefield itself wants you to win. Nitzchuni bona nitzchuni. It's mind-blowing. Yes, anytime you're going to take any polar opposite and resolve them in a way that resonates, that is, isn't it? That's the Chochmah, Barak Maverick, the lightning bolt. That's the Chanukah miracle of burning and not burning. That moment where you have the two opposites, because an idea always balances two opposites. Whenever you are able to resolve them, you've automatically reached a state that's described as the virgin dance. Okay, I didn't want to say it before because people are so sensitive. That's the virgin dance. Why can they dance? Because they're not restricted to a masculine world of duality. They can dance because they're beyond intellect. It's a state that you reach when intellect, which by definition always balances two opposites or says one's better, has the weave and the seeing a greater picture whereby both have a place. The Gentile and the Jew have a place. And they support a single goal, which is what we call God's plan, and other people sing about it, right? Okay, anyways, on that happy note, Freilich last day of Chanukah and a good week, and I don't know, maybe I'll see you on the beach.